afternoon. I'm Courtney Bailey with Leadership Austin.
And I'm Trenzio Turner with Austin PBS.
So not only is it the beginning of the third year of the pandemic, but this is also the first week of South by Southwest, which has adapted to the pandemic by providing a hybrid format this year. As a result, we thought it would be fitting to shine a spotlight on our artists and creative communities in Greater Austin.
Before we meet our panel of artists and creatives, we would like to make a few quick announcements. First, we want you to engage with us, so please share your questions and comments for the panelists.
And second, we want you to share your feedback, so please fill out our 3-question survey at the end of the panel. And now, let's introduce our panelists. So joining us today is Mark Hallman. Mark is a music producer and musician.
Next, we have Casey Loon-Ung. Casey is an actor, musician, and educator.
And rounding out the panel is Shasperay Irvin. Shasperay is a spoken word artist and performer. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Well, let's jump right into it. Like so many, folks in the creative fields have suffered a great deal during these past 2 years. Can each of you briefly tell us what motivates you to continue doing your art and creating in these challenging times? Let's kick things off with Casey.
Yeah, thank you so much. Excited to be here. For me, what motivated me, the pandemic was really tough. I'm an actor and musician, so there's a lot of isolation. And what helps me in those times is to reach out to my creative community of friends. And so if I can't perform, if I can't act, I call my friends and we have we just get together and talk about our projects or what we want to work on. I have a writers group that we meet together and write. So I think really reaching out to my own personal community has been very helpful for me to keep my art and my work alive. I've took some acting and writing courses online. And so just any ways for me to help hone my craft has really helped me to stay motivated and close to my art. Yeah.
Keeping that pencil sharp.
Mm-hmm.
Shasperay.
Yes, so the pandemic has been a challenge, especially as an artist. I'm used to touring all over the place for poetry competitions, poetry slams, and had to take a step back from that because of the pandemic. And kind of bouncing off of what Casey said is like having a creative community coming together. A lot of what the poets, my poet friends and my poet people, what we'll do is body doubling, like getting things done virtually. So hopping on a Zoom, hopping on a chat, and just writing together and working together, and just still having a sense of community has really helped.
That's beautiful. Love to see the community sticking together.
Yeah.
Mark?
Yes, for me, it's been challenging, but I love challenges. So it's allowed me to reconstruct kind of what I do and kind of focus more on helping people out. As a music producer, I oftentimes play the instruments myself in the studio. So I've been able to set, and I understand audio enough that I can be able to set my clients up with a way that they can be working where they are and I can be working where I am, and really didn't skip much of a beat. The main thing is that in my studio, I wasn't able to bring any bands in. So it was more shifted towards me, more isolated with me playing, which I still love to do. And I'm looking forward to being able to get back into live performances in the studio. So, and if this, I wanted to say this, if this happened 20 years ago, technology wasn't what it is today, it would not have worked.
That's so true. This show right now probably wouldn't be happening.
Right.
Thank you, Mark.
Yep.
All right. So Casey, this next question is for you. You are a second generation Vietnamese American, and we know that in the wake of the pandemic, the Asian American Pacific Islander communities were hit hard, not only by COVID-19, but by a surge of hate and violent crimes. So I have a 2-part question. One, how have you been able to use your platform to confront negative stereotypes and hate towards AAPI communities in the industries that you work in? And 2, how has the pandemic exacerbated any pre-existing issues impacting AAPI artists and creatives that you know of?
Yes, thanks, Courtney. And yeah, this is from my own experience, but for using my own platform to combat negative and hate crimes, I think for me, it's two things. Like one, really standing in solidarity and recognizing how the AAPI communities are really marginalized and all the hate towards us, but also standing in solidarity with the Black communities. And there's a history of kind of a rift between the two, and really recognizing the two groups and what they experienced. I think secondly for me is I like the grassroots approach. I'm a community organizer. I like to get people together. It just keeps me alive. So like last year, a friend of mine collaborated and we started an AAPI writing circle for female identifying and non-binary folks. So we get together, we heal, we talk about our experiences, and just hopefully that sends us out with some grounding. And this year we're forming a panel for specifically film industry, how we change the landscape and the conversations regarding AAPI faces in film and move that needle forward. So that's how I've used my platform. And as far as negative stuff that has been exacerbated by the pandemic, I think just isolation for an already like marginalized small community. And so I think it's been great because it's pushed us to come together as AAPI even stronger. So I think that's a negative, but comes a positive for it.
Thank you for that, Casey.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Mark, you've been in the music business for more than 30 years. You have experienced the 80s, the 90s, the evolution of Keep Austin Weird, the switch to streaming, and now the pandemic. How has COVID-19 affected the music industry and you personally as a producer? Has it remained the same? Has it changed forever? What do you think?
Most of the musicians I know that I work with in producing records, it's been difficult, but a positive experience because they're able to woodshed. They're able to. Most of them just said, "Okay, well, I'm going to learn how to play piano," and they played piano, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to write so many songs within this year, and I'm going to get up and do that every day. So really, the people that I've been working with here in Austin have been amazing in terms of that, taking advantage of the fact that they've got to woodshed. They can't go out and play, so they've got to do something to keep going. And it's really, most of the people I know took it to the positive.
It's great to hear, making something positive out of everything that was going on.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Mark, did you say woodshed? That's like a new word. I haven't heard that
before. Woodshed. Yeah, that's an old term from an old guy. That you go someplace and you all you have is wood and an axe and there's some crude tools, and you just make do with what you have, and you do it for a certain period of time. Woodshedding. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're not alone, Mark. I'm with you on that. I knew what it was.
Yeah. We like to say shedding. I'm going to go shed. Practice. Yep.
And then there's shred, of course.
Yeah. There's shred.
Yeah, I got to shred.
All right. So, Shasper Ray, at the beginning of the pandemic, we experienced the murder of George Floyd. And during that time, many cities painted Black Lives Matter murals on their streets. In addition to acknowledging Black Lives Matter on Congress Avenue, local Austin and Austin activists and artists also painted Black Artists Matter in yellow on East 11th Street, which is a part of the historic Negro District. Why do you think this distinction on East 11th Street was important, especially at the height of the pandemic? And what significance does it hold for you as a Black queer creative artist in Greater Austin?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So the pandemic has affected everyone, right? The global pandemic has affected everyone. But for Black people, I feel like there's a different layer to things, especially with George Floyd's murder. you know, I wanted to be at those protests. I wanted to march. I wanted to be at the forefront. But then I was torn because we are in the midst of a global pandemic, right? And the Black community is and was dying at alarming rates as opposed to other communities. So I had all of that to consider and ponder. And I really appreciated those murals. I even went to the street. I have a picture in front of the Black Artists Matter where they painted out on the street in yellow, because I appreciate it, because I am an art activist. And so the way that I show up, I don't usually go to the protests. My mission as an artist is to use my art to challenge people's biases, to help them reflect, and most importantly, to educate people. So it really just validated the work that I do, and just fueled me to keep doing what I was doing and keep creating, and that I am a part of the movement, and that's how I show up. And I just really appreciate it. And it was something where I was able to see other ways that creatives were challenging these things and these inequities.
I appreciate you saying that your art is your activism, and that's really important. So thank you for that.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Again, we want to encourage the audience. If you have questions for this panel, please drop those into the chat. We don't have anything in there yet, but we'll keep checking. This next round of questions is open to the entire panel, so feel free to jump in and comment as you feel led to do so. COVID-19 has disrupted so many spaces to the extent that many of our daily lives, daily activities, services, and resources have transitioned to online platforms, kind of like we were talking about earlier. Do you see these platforms as resources that help individuals and communities showcase their art? And has it changed or informed the kind of art you're delivering today? Anyone care to take that on?
I'll start. There's so many things happening in the music industry. This is just one of them, but it has definitely changed. Everyone is that I know that is making a living in the music industry are rethinking how to deliver their music and how to create their music. And so as a music producer, I've been, like I was saying earlier, I'm adapting to that and figuring out a way to do it. Again, it's been a real positive thing. If it went on too much longer, I don't think it would be, but it is now.
Yeah. We welcome the live music back live, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, for me too, as far as I also songwrite and produce, and so like Zoom session, share and write. It's because I can move people outside of the States and do it. I definitely prefer in person because there's this thing as Zoom fatigue, as we all know. And so I would say there's positives and negatives, like Mark was saying. I absolutely agree. And as far as acting side, it's definitely changed the landscape for auditions. And so we have to set up our own camera and situation and learn how to get creative. So it's kind of nice because you don't have to commute so much to the auditions. So there's been some positives and negatives for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've kind of all become our own home tech here overnight.
Yeah. For me, I do slam poetry. So one thing is the competitions have actually moved online and have happened in a virtual setting, which was really interesting and weird because we're used to like this buzz and energy at a slam. Having an audience hype you up is really important to, I think, competition. So it's really different when you just do a poem and then you hear silence and you get off and you have people scoring you in the chat. So it's definitely, but what I really enjoyed actually, because I had to run my own slam, I was supposed to, I have a Black Arts Matters festival out of Wisconsin, and I'll actually be having that later this month in person. But for 2020, we had to move the festival to a completely virtual format. And so I had to learn different platforms like StreamYard and figure out the best way to put on a slam virtually. And I think it's given an opportunity. There were people from other countries that were able to slam. So there are limitations to being in a physical space, but the virtual world has opened up the possibilities and opportunities for me. When I get gigs as a feature, to do some spoken word or to do some poems, I don't necessarily have to pick up everything, drop everything, go to like, let's say Louisville or something. I can do it right here in my office, and I get to be in community and be in conversation with folks in a real way that, I wouldn't be able to. There are limitations to that, but it's like 1 minute I can be technically on a Louisville stage, the next Texas, the next, the possibilities are endless. So
that's awesome.
That's
Thank y'all for that.
All right, so let's switch gears and talk about health for a moment. So many artists were ineligible for like COVID-19 relief, such as the American Rescue Plan Act, HEROES Act, and the CARES Act. And some organizations like HAM and Dawa Heals took it upon themselves to provide health and economic relief for artists and creatives to weather the storm of the pandemic. Have any of you had to navigate these resources? And if so, what has been your experience in accessing resources to maintain your health and wellness? Who would like to take that on? I see you nodding, Casey.
Yeah. At the start of the pandemic, there was a particular music resource grant through the city of Boston. And I understand at that time, everyone was scrambling to get things together, right? So I definitely allow grace for that. But for me, the application it was kind of hard to fill out and just to understand the jargon. And there were some questions like personal information, like Social Security, etc. And I was like, I'm not comfortable putting this information out there. And so like I emailed them, I called them, and I got no support. And so for me, the frustration was I wish that there was resource more in the city to have someone who can just support people as they fill out forms, just to create more accessibility. So I think I had some frustration there. Very thankful for the local groups such as Ham and Dawa for creating more accessible forms and getting the word out there for us. So those were great resources. So I think we could always use a little bit more help, I think, for me personally.
Thank you for that. Shasbury and then Mark.
Yeah, so I kind of just wanted to piggyback off of that. Yeah, access is a thing. When I think about artist grants and funding for the arts, it's usually for nonprofits, or there's a trickle down thing that happens. But being able to write grants and to understand these forms and applications, that is a full-time job. There are people who do that for a living, writing grants. So thinking about the responsibility of an artist to be like their own social media person, their own this, and that's just another layer, trying to get support and funds. So yeah, I think about access as well. I was fortunate enough to be able to receive a spoken word artist relief grant early on in the pandemic. And it wasn't out of Austin, but they made that really easy. It was really simple to fill out. It was accessible. You could fill it out on your phone, and you were able to get support from the organization that was giving out those grants. So yeah, I wish that there were more opportunities like that in consideration when we're thinking about the bandwidth of artists. And
right. Yeah. Thank you for that. Mark?
Well, I don't want to diss our fair city. I love it here, but the reaching out to the musicians, trying to help, they turned me down. They turned everybody I know down. And it's like, where did that money go? It's like, I didn't know what happened. It just, it didn't help anybody. Having said that, the federal one was easier to fill out, and it helped me greatly, but I really wish there was a little bit more support from the city, or a little bit more, maybe competence would be maybe the better word for it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Just wanted to say that. I love it here, though.
Same.
It's okay to love it here, but then also acknowledge some gaps. It's okay. It's all right.
Don't get me started on the city.
Trinzia.
Yes. Again, we want to encourage the audience to definitely drop any questions you have in the chat. We have a great panel here, and they can probably provide some insight for you if you have any questions. I'm going to continue on here. We're going to switch gears to education, something else that needs support. Art education budgets have really suffered throughout the pandemic, and they were already reeling prior to COVID-19. Just last year, the Texas legislature proposed a bill where high school students could opt out of taking a fine arts course or a career and technical education course. With everything happening in education today, how do we encourage and support the next generation of artists post-pandemic? And I know, Casey, you're an educator. So any
give me a
thoughts there?
second. I'm gonna pull out my soapbox here. It's a hot button. It's a hot button. And I know all of our panelists here are very passionate advocates for arts education. I just got word that AISD is cutting 20% of the music programming at schools for time and budget. It's really disappointing. I understand that the education field right now is looking really tough as far as just teachers and retention. I think it's a big disappointment of cutting music and art programs because, as we all know, and it was expressed with our sponsor today, that music is therapy and it's expression. And for myself, music is a place where music class is a place where I felt like I belonged. It helped me to not feel depressed. It helped my mental health. It helps my education and my confidence in myself. There's so many benefits. And my fear is that by cutting these programs, that you're going to have more stressed out children and just, and already a very stressed out world and system. And that's very sad and disheartening that we're cutting imagination and creativity out of our students. And I think in ways that the community could help is to advocate. And I'm going to be posting out some links that I know Courtney will be sending out where the community can engage to take a stand and say, and just help out. And I think another thing that people can do is just ask your music and art teachers, how can I best support you? Whether that's through booster clubs, donating, because they are writing off the funds of parents and to keep their programs going. So I think that's a huge way to be a small support even.
Back to grassroots. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a sad situation that art isn't considered as important as it was back in my day.
Yeah, I just want to say that, I started, I was engaged in the arts from very early on. I was in the pre-professional company for Zach Theater. I did their musical theater program, and I started spoken word and I started poetry when I was 14. And that was essential to my life and the trajectory that I went to. I never thought I could even go to college. I come from a low income family. I didn't think I could go to college, but I went on to get a full scholarship for spoken word poetry in Wisconsin. So having arts in my life, it gave me focus. It gave me motivation, especially because I was an at-risk youth. And, what sports do for some people, art did that for me. I was constantly just wanting to be a part of art any way I could be. I was in the theater programs. I was doing youth poetry. And so it was very important to my life. And my teachers, the support system that I had was amazing. Everyone supported the things that I was doing. And I just think if I didn't have that support, if someone would have told me, oh, that's not a real job, your dream isn't something that you should pursue, that how discouraging and how different my life could be. So yeah, it's just so important. And anytime I can, I go and teach workshops at schools. I make sure that I'm introducing another art form to kids because I've just seen how it can change someone's life. And I know it has changed mine. for the better, for sure.
Exactly. I think we definitely should. Art is equally as important as math, science, and the other platforms. And we should definitely look at it as such. We do have an audience question from Megan Turner Wells. And Megan's asks, what does Austin's creative community look like in 5 or 10 or even 20 years? What will continue to change that has been spurred by the pandemic or social reckoning? That's an interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
Like to say, Mark, you want to? Mark's like, wait a minute.
Sure, I'll just jump in. That's what I like to do. I would say we're going to have to really be resource motivated. We got to find resources, and we've got to band together as much as we can, the creative community in Austin, because the pandemic showed us that we can't take anything for granted. Before this happened, touring musicians thought, well, I'm touring and everything's going well. Well, all of a sudden, no, you're not touring. So there's got to be something else. So that, hopefully these people who have to change what they're doing are looking for other people who want to change what they're doing, and will combine together to create a resource for the rest of us. And I think we're going to be more resource oriented in the next 5 to 10 years. That's my opinion.
Casey or Shasbury, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's Austin is changing so rapidly, and we're getting a ton of transplants. I am one myself. So, but as far as just like the tech community and everything that's coming through, and while I think it's easy to be like, oh, those tech people coming through, changing, taking away our creativity, I think there's a way to collaborate. And how can we bring our artist community and the tech and try and find some places of collaboration and points like that. I think right now we have a very awesome music advisory council and panel of people advocating for musicians that the city takes seriously, and I hope that they continue to do and hear our creative voices as well. So I think it's definitely going to change. It's already has, but I'm excited for maybe points of collaboration with our changing landscape.
One more thing I'd like to add before we go on, and that is that there's groups like Black Fret. I don't know if you know about them, but they're gathering people with financial resources and supporting musicians by offering grants. Every year, they're pulling together their resources to help out artists with what they're doing and the creation. More organizations like Black Fret, I think, is what we're going to be seeing. I hope. Yeah.
Same.
Mm-hmm. That's good. All right. So I'm going to go on to the next question. So when we said, I feel like I have to ask this, right? Because Austin is the music capital venue of the world. So when we say Austin is the music capital venue of the world, do you see that being inclusive of everyone? Why not? That's right. You made a face. What was that?
Yeah, well, I actually am not a transplant. I'm a unicorn in that I was born and raised in Austin. And it's always been, since I remember, the music capital of the world, the music capital of the world. And when I hear that, I often actually think about who I don't see on those stages in Austin. So representation has been super important for me in my life. And I noticed that some people are missing from those narratives, right? And I think like even genres, if we think about genres of music, I think indie, I think rock here, but not necessarily R&B, hip hop, rap. And so what music is being supported on that level in Austin, I've found interesting, but I've also been able to engage with community artists who are creating in different spaces, and I just hope that they get more support as the years go.
It's also, I believe the term is live music capital of the world, which is, is basically how how it goes, because it's definitely not the music capital of the world, but live music, yes, I can dig that. And what Shaftesbury was saying is so true. And as far as representing different styles of music in the press, it just needs to diversify, in my opinion, a lot more. Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that, Mark. Live music capital. Casey, anything you want to add?
I second both what Shaftesbury and Mark were saying, just regarding just representation. And I mean, there are pockets, there are places, you know, like the Sahara Lounge that features awesome like reggae music and everything. But, you know, I mean, all sorts of different types of music, but we don't see it on the bigger stages. So yeah, creating more spaces, opportunities for folks of color in different genres is it's lacking. So yeah, 100% agree with y'all.
All right, so I know we mentioned it earlier in the conversation, but I'm curious to know what's the impact of South by Southwest coming back as a hybrid event? Do we think that will kickstart the creative community after everything that's happened?
Yeah, I think that it's weird because we're coming back again to something familiar, but I definitely think people are hungry for collaboration. I think more, like Mark was saying earlier, lots of collaborations, and Shaftesbury earlier talking about so many more types of collaborations have been coming out from the pandemic. And now we get to be in person and explore those. And I think that, I think people are ready and more creative things are coming about. I personally think so, especially in the wake of the AAPI and the Black communities and what's been going on in during the pandemic too. I think more amazing things are coming out of it.
South by Southwest is an interesting study. I've been involved with it since its inception, and I've been on stage trying to sell my wares, and I've been behind the scenes, and I've been on panels, and I think it does a lot of good. But as far as impacting creativity, I like the fact that we're able to go see different artists doing different things from around the world. It's a really great opportunity for that, and so. I don't know. I'm not really making a point.
No, you are.
Yeah.
You are.
You called it a study. I was like, interesting study.
It's a study. It's a study for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Just being able to go see something, it's a big change.
Yes.
Being able to make the choice and doing what's safe for you. And like stages are opening back up. Plays are happening again. I'm seeing audition, things come up for acting opportunities, and it's encouraging, and it's a little weird too. It's like we're teetering on this edge, watching the stages. We're stage 2, I believe right now, and so that's encouraging. It's like, oh, it's safe to go somewhere, and being able to have a choice. It feels good, right?
Yeah, totally.
That's good. Casey, I saw your hand pop up. Oh.
Yeah, I did want to definitely tag. I think I'll always have a little bit of a qualm with is I feel for musicians, local musicians tend to always not get as much space as outside musicians for South by Southwest. I still think that's a little bit unfair and underrepresented still. So I hope that landscape does change. Yeah,
that has been the case since day one. As I was saying, local musicians, it's not. We're unable to really promote ourselves, even though the myth was that we could for years. Again, for me, South by South, I would love for that to change. It originally started out where we wanted to support local musicians and get them on a bigger stage with a bigger audience, but it changed pretty rapidly, and so now I don't bother trying to promote what I do. I want to go mainly just see what other people are doing, and that's kind of the beauty for me in the South by Southwest thing. Yeah.
I just want to say that all of this sounds like we need to have something that does support.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, look at that.
Create the space that you wish existed, right? So maybe like it's up to us to create our own opportunities, and maybe we just need a Austin only artist festival where you're seeing local talents and people are exposed to artists that are in their cities. South by Southwest does a great job of bringing outside artists in, but like we can have our own thing too.
That's a great idea.
That is, Shasbury, that is exactly, I'd love to see that happen. South by Southwest.
Let's work together on that. Let's talk.
South by Southwest for us.
Look at that. I love this jam session that's happening right now. Taking place live and in person.
That's right.
All right. Speaking of that, I'm curious. I know we talked about community earlier, but what are your experiences with other creatives in the community during this time? And how do you maintain a sense of community with everything that's happened? I know we talked about it a little bit, but I'd love to hear a little bit more if you have it. Mark?
How do you maintain what you're doing through this pandemic is basically?
Yeah. So with everything that's happening, how do you keep a sense of community going?
We can go into that more, definitely. I think by the fact that we're all going through it, and finding other people who are looking for another way to do it, a way to stay alive creatively, and actually, especially those of us who make our living that way. I think just banding together in whatever way we can, and talking it up, and coming up with solutions like Shasbury just did. I mean, that's a great idea. And so for me, I just, let's have the conversation. I hate to be trite, but we keep the conversation going about how to make this something that isn't destroyed by anything, a virus, by racism, something that can thrive without anything bringing it down. So, anything we can do to talk about that and have that conversation, I think is great. And people are doing it. We're doing it right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
go ahead, Shasbury.
Yeah, what I've actually done is, so like I mentioned before, I ended up leaving Austin for a time to go to school in Wisconsin. So I feel really connected to Wisconsin and the Wisconsin arts community. But I felt coming back to Austin, graduating in the pandemic in 2020, I came back to Austin. I felt super isolated from other creatives here. A lot of people that I knew growing up have moved away or just aren't around anymore. And, we have that isolation. And so what I actually did this time around, I am taking a playwriting class at ACC. It's ACC, Austin Community College, great place. Been taking classes since I was in high school at ACC. And I decided to take a playwriting class, not only to just do something that I'm interested in and, flex a creative muscle, but I'm also meeting people, in a virtual space, because this is a virtual class, but I'm meeting other creatives in Austin, people who are doing other things. And that's been so inspiring and encouraging, and just being in a room full of people that I don't know. It's a networking opportunity and an opportunity for me to learn. So that's something that I've been doing to get reconnected and reestablished in Austin as an artist. Yeah. Just getting to know other people, even in a virtual space.
Yeah, I totally echo what both the panelists have said. Just reaching out and forming community. I think for me, that's the most effective. Just even checking in on my creative friends and just being, how are you? I think everybody here is so talented as they're passionate in art, but they're also human beings who need to check in every once in a while. And I think that's very helpful for me and my creative friends. I took a writing course last year online, and some of those are my closest and best friends, and I've never met in person. And we still talk every other month to check in on our creative work. So I think, like Mark was saying, banding together has been a really positive thing.
Good.
I love how y'all are
community.
creating the sense of community. That's really important.
Yeah.
because during this time, like, it's easy to isolate yourself. So that's real. We do have a question from Mia Sims. Mia says, in addition to money, what are some tangible ways that individuals can support the arts? Shaspree's like, no money. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, money. Honestly,
well,
artists need money.
I will say simple things like liking something on social media. Doesn't cost any money, but it really helps people. Or listening to something when a piece of music comes up, just listen to it, and that artist gets a little bit of feedback and might even feel a little bit better about themselves, even though they didn't get paid. It's really not about the money. I mean, we'd love to get paid for what we do, and so we don't have to do anything else, basically, is it. But yeah, there's just take a minute and appreciate it, or share something that you liked something on social media, share it,
Right. If you have creative friends, you should share their stuff.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Mia, because it's very great to get people's input on how to help. And if, money is an object, like, how can I help otherwise? I agree with Mark, like sharing their social media page, following them, giving them a lot of followers. I would even say, if you have any artist or musician friends, just asking them about, like, how they're paid, what are their rates, like what goes into them figuring out their rates, and just hear them and ask, how can I support you? Again, just being direct and asking. I think, yeah, for me, it's sharing my music. A friend of mine said you could buy their song on like Apple iTunes or whatever, and then stream it forever, but at least buy it, so you pay a little, or Bandcamp to pay it forward a little bit. I think that's always helpful, and supporting them at their shows.
I do that. I'll buy something, but then listen to it on Spotify.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or I'll buy. Lately, I've been buying band T-shirts of bands that I like. Merchandise. Just say, yeah.
Yes, merch.
Yeah.
Merch.
Yes.
Merch.
So yeah, I'm just gonna basically echo what Casey and Mark were saying. Yes, sharing social media, sharing, supporting. Algorithms. I know a lot of artists that I know have been doing TikTok and monetizing their TikToks and finding other ways to support themselves as full-time artists. But just sharing something goes a long way. Because I know that's how I've made connections with people, is because someone saw my work randomly on YouTube, or some friend shared it here or there. Another way I feel like people can support, though, is we were talking, Casey, I think you mentioned, tech companies and the presence of tech companies. Well, if you're in these businesses, if you are in these organizations, think about ways that you can give an artist an opportunity. Maybe you're having a conference or an event and asking an artist to perform, trying to get a platform. In small ways like that can really go a big way. And infiltrating these spaces and making them more collaborative and artistic is definitely a way. So even if it's just trying to give a resource, share a resource, that's a big help.
Yeah.
I think that's all great. And I love what Casey said about asking the artist or creative, like what it takes to do their work. So I think the education part is really important, because sometimes we don't know like how many hours and the effort that's put into the work that folks do. And so like on the surface, you might be like, why would I pay that much? But then when you realize like, no, they're doing a lot. This is a lot of time, a lot of effort. And so just educating ourselves on that, the effort that's put into the art is really important. So I appreciate that. I have another question. So with all the difficulties associated with living through the pandemic, is there anything that was positive that you would like to take forward post-pandemic?
A lot.
What? Tell me, Mark.
To recognize, I pretty much said it, but to recognize that that creativity is often sparked from difficulty or limitations. Limitations will often be what's actually needed to spark creativity, and because creativity is trying to come up with something that hasn't been done before, for instance, or to simply honor something that you are experiencing inside yourself and wanting to share it with somebody else. But we had to go inside. A lot of us had to go inside, literally go inside our house and stay there. So we can take that forward. We can take that forward, and and make use of that, and integrate it into a whole new paradigm now, where we are allowed to go out and gather together. Hopefully, there's no surety of that, but to be able to, well, if we can't, we'll just do this. We've been shown some things. I have a friend who, an artist that I work with, who decided that this was going to go on long enough. She built an actual studio in her on her property for live streams, and now she has people come in and do live streams, and she does live streams, only live streams. She puts out music, but she's not touring yet. But just focusing on getting a really good sounding, a live stream that is really fulfilling. It can be done. It's often not done. There's a lot of live streams that are just really boring and not happening, but it can be done. There's an art to it. So anyway, I think taking forward this live stream idea into the future is one of the things we're going to be doing.
Oh yeah, that's definitely happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mark, I can piggyback off of what you're kind of saying about your friend in her studio. Is like, I was forced to be inside, and kind of forced to sit down and create in a way, but also it made me consider my space in a different way.
Yeah.
I decided that like being inside was an opportunity to get creative. And so, I beautified my space. Essentially, I made it reflect how I feel inside. I was able to hire a local Black interior decorator, designed by Deshawn, to, just help me feel my space and be like happy that I am inside, because looking at white walls is, I felt boxed in, but, being able to be creative in that way is super fun. So, yeah.
Yeah.
What about Casey? Anything you want to add to that?
I mean, I echo both of what they're saying. I think for me, it's just helped with really enjoying collaborations now. It just works so much better with other people, and it's just so much more fun. And I think another thing I've discovered about myself is just my worth as an artist, and really advocating for myself and feeling very sturdy in that now, kind of entering into the new world that we're coming in now. So those are some things that I'll take forward with me.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Let me ask, I know this conversation is focused on the pandemic, but what's one thing that you wish people would understand about our artists and creative communities beyond the pandemic?
Like a myth or something that you think is there that you want to break?
Good question. Anyone got that?
That's right.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So the starving artists wouldn't be starving if you supported them.
I was gonna say the same.
I like that. That pretty much is it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
So support for artists goes a long way, and just we can demystify, what it takes to be an artist, how all the hours we put in, but it is a valid way of life. Being an artist is a valid way of life. I'm glad that people pushed me to continue to do art, because I tried to go to pharmacy school and that just wouldn't have worked out for me. And so I'm glad that people pushed me to really focus on my art, and just keeping in mind that like this is a valid career choice for people. Supporting artists means that they won't go starving if you feed them, you feed the poet. is like what I like to say.
Yes.
I like that. Feed the poet.
Feed the poet. Yes. Just like support. I think that's the biggest thing. Oh yeah. Shasbury said it all. I mean, it's just, we're human beings too, but we also, art is like air to a human being. It keeps us alive.
Yeah.
And that's just who we are. That's what we do.
Yeah.
And so, like we had said earlier in some, supporting, sharing, financial help, tips are huge for us as artists, because like Courtney was saying, this is our craft. We built years and years of lessons of study. It's to master what we do. And I think helping arts organizations to help continue, cultivating our younger generation is huge too, to support.
Agreed.
And speaking of feed the poet, we're gonna change the call to action just a bit, and we're gonna focus on you all. So I want you to tell us where people can find your work, and how best can the individuals watching, as well as like organizations, engage with you all. So we can start with Mark. I saw you.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, for me, it's quite simply just Googling my name, and then it'll take you to places where you can see my work for the past 30, 40 years, and people that I'm involved with. Yeah, there's because everybody else, all of my artists have their own record companies. There's no really, I can't say go to, you can go to markhallmanmusic.com. How about that? Go there. And also Facebook and Instagram, great resources for finding music and what people are doing, and just following a thread. You see someone you like, you see someone who you want are posting something about their studio. Well, let's go see what they've got and see where it leads us and see what they've been doing.
Thank you, Mark. Shasbury?
Yeah, so you can keep up with me on Facebook, Instagram. My name is Shasbury Irvin on Facebook. I also have a website. If you go to www.shasbury.com, you can find a little bit more about what I do as an artist and arts administrator. I do weddings. And yeah, I'm just happy to be followed, I guess, and to keep up with everyone who's interested in spoken word and Black arts.
And Casey?
Yeah, for me, just following me on social media, so Instagram and Facebook. My website is kcmusic.com. So all my links to my socials are there. So just to follow, purchase my music on Bandcamp. I believe Courtney's sending out some links of how y'all can follow us after the segment. So that will all be there, and that would be amazing to have follows and support.
Thank you for that. And
yeah,
I forgot to mention that we mentioned it earlier, but we would love those who are watching to give us their feedback. And so we are dropping a survey link. It's 3 questions. Please fill that out and let us know how you feel about this panel. Thank you. Trinzia?
Absolutely. Well, thank y'all so much. I think from a call to action standpoint, what you just gave out was perfect for us from a call to action standpoint, and how we could actually connect with all of you and how we can connect with other artists. So that being said, we want to thank you, Mark Hallman, Casey Luong, and Shasbury Irvin, for sharing your lived experiences as artists and creatives in our community. As the COVID infection and hospitalization rates continue to drop, we hope you and all those in the Austin creative community will be able to fully return, enriching our lives with the beauty you bring to it every day.
And we also hope those watching can join us in April. The topic will be Beyond Call Out Culture, how do we hold each other accountable? So thank you again for joining us, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day. See you next month.